Hey everybody, welcome back for the third episode of our podcast series with the UMKC Block School of Management in partnership with Social Apex Media. This is presented by Startland News, and we're outside of the Rainier Innovators Hub here on campus. It's a chilly Friday, and I'm here with Andrew to talk to him about his business, and we're going to just jump right into it. So tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me about the business that you've been building, you said, for a long, long time, that you really started to crystallize and form up in the last semester.
Yeah, so I'm Andrew Bates. I'm a senior here at UMKC studying supply chain management. And of course, over the course of my life, I've been around Hot Wheels and toy cars. It's something that my dad started out way before I was born, and it's something that I kind of was short to embrace, but then eventually I kind of saw the money that was involved with it, and I was like, okay, these are actually kind of cool. So I got into collecting them, and then I realized, like I said, the money that was involved. So my dad and I and my brother, actually, we started buying and selling people's private collections.
Okay, and so when did you start doing that?
About 6 or 7 years ago was officially when I started on this track.
Awesome. And so last semester, you really built out the brand, put it together. So tell me about that process.
Yeah, so I started out 2 semesters ago. I heard about the e-scholars, and I was like, I don't know if this idea is really fit in there or not. So I applied and I pitched a different idea, and I hated it. So I decided to pivot a little bit and build up this Hot Wheels brand that I've been, this Hot Wheels business that I've been doing for, like I said, the last 6-7 years. And through some of the mentors through there, I've developed my branding. I have a better idea of the direction I want to going into the future. And yeah, I mean, it's really grown from where I was last semester to now. I'm really happy with my progress so far.
So are you a solopreneur right now? Are you working still with your dad and your brother?
I still work with them a little bit. My dad recently just moved, so has less involvement, and my brother is still involved with it. So it's really just me and him, and I have another partner I'm working with this semester.
Okay, awesome. So you started about 6 years ago. Collectible market's obviously been a big thing for many years. So tell me about your focus on the collectible market. It's talking about Hot Wheels. So tell me a little bit about what specifically you're attracted to in that market. Is it automotive or is it specifically Hot Wheels?
It's really like collectible toys is really my main segment. I've done one of the ways that we source inventory is going to garage sales and things like that. And obviously you can hit 100 different garage sales, and not everyone's going to have Hot Wheels for sale. So you kind of have to diversify a little bit so that you're not wasting your time running around to all these places. So I mean, I bought Legos, video games, music media. There hasn't been a thing that isn't illegal that I haven't bought and made money on.
And so what do you think it is about collectible toys or toys in general that stimulates such a marketplace for it?
I mean, it's just kind of the way people, I think, were raised. In the 60s and 70s, a lot of people were exposed to these toys, and they remember they get lost over time, but then when they get older, they realize just how much joy that these toys bring to them. And so the people go out and start collecting them again. And that causes people to go back for the old stuff, but then people like Mattel realize this market as well, and they start making new stuff for these collectors as well.
So what do you think it is about vintage side of things? Because I think there's something to be said about nostalgia, but also young folks like vintage things too, even if they didn't grow up with it. So tell me a little bit about that sentiment. What is that?
I mean, it's just it's some sort of mindset. Like you said, it's nostalgia. I think it's just kind of the way that things are marketed to us. Especially the way I see trends, like in the 80s, the 50s were popular in the 80s, like you see in the Back to the Future movies and things like that. And then when Stranger Things came out, you saw a lot of the 80s stuff popular in 2010s, 2020s. So I think it's just a way that is just marketed to us, and then we get that sense of nostalgia, and then we get that drive to live that life, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So is there a certain time frame that you're partial to? What's your like favorite like era of like toys or even just collectibles?
I like the 60s and 70s stuff. I have over 100 Red Lines, which were the original Hot Wheels that came out starting at 1968 in my own personal collection. I love just the ingenuity that it took to design those cars and uh, just the stories that they all tell. Like people go for the mint examples of these cars, which is fine and all, but I kind of like the ones that are just slightly played with a little bit because that tells a better story than just one that just came out of the package.
Yeah.
So,
Well, you can kind of see some, examples of what you're talking about, considering we are just across away from the Miniature Museum.
Yep.
Which I've had the pleasure of going to again recently, like just a couple months ago. And it kind of shows that like these things are beyond even, we call them toys, but they are art or, they are capturing moments in time.
Yep.
And I think there's something really interesting about that. And I think that people are willing to, going into the business side of it, I think people are willing to spend money to be able to basically purchase capsules of time and be able to relive those moments and get even just a couple minutes of that emotion again. So maybe talk to me a little bit about what you're tapping into, because at surface level, you're collecting toys, right? But what is the inherent value of this? What really stimulates you to create this business? What about the nostalgia and that psychology behind it excites you?
Well, I mean, that psychology is more inside my customer, which is really the main reason I do this, is the people I serve. And they all see the really cool thing about my customers is that we all collect Hot Wheels, and my customers are just as crazy, if not crazier, about it than I am. But we are all on different missions as collectors. So like I said, there's people like me that go after the Red Lines and want that older stuff. And then there's people that played with the later generations and they want to start building up that collection. And we all have like that same drive that drives us all to keep collecting, but we're all on a different mission to find the cars that speak to us.
Yeah, so talk to me about, I know we were chatting about it briefly before we started recording, but talk to me a little bit about some of the challenges maybe you've had, just starting the business or maybe finding, what you wanted to focus on. So talk to me about that. Like, what has it been like? Because you came in and you started a different business and then you switched back. So talk to me maybe about what happened there.
Really the biggest thing that when it comes to entrepreneurship that I struggled with, and I had a lot of warning when it came to this, so I want to make sure I emphasize this, is imposter syndrome, where it feels like I don't belong here. I don't know, like, and I didn't have like that clear direction on what I was doing, so I was like, I really don't belong here. But once I realized just how supportive a lot of the resources here at UMKC and just a big group of people that are just as passionate about entrepreneurship as I am, I realized I had nothing to worry about. And at the end of the day, no one's going to die.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean, entrepreneurship is just about trying. The word has become somewhat, overused a little bit by people that, I just want to be an entrepreneur and make a bunch of money. And it kind of takes the focus away from what it is, which is just people trying to create things, do things. When I was an e-scholar in 2017, I think, my professors, it was Brian Boots who was running the program with Philip Gonsher, two people that are still here, fantastic men and teachers. But what was really interesting is I started a business. It was a nonprofit. It was focused on the arts, and it had almost nothing to do with what I do today. Like, I do not do that. Now, there are elements of what I loved about that company idea in my businesses of today, but I didn't know what I was doing, and I had none of the things that I do every day today were things that I was sharpening then. What I was learning then was that it's okay to fail, it's okay to be learning at all times, and it's okay to ask for help, to find resources. And that's why I think UMKC's e-scholars and just entrepreneurial programming is so important, is because it's a testing ground.
yeah.
Right? And because the great products are not made in, one day, and you're just some perfect entrepreneur, even the greatest entrepreneurs of all time. If you look at someone like Da Vinci, I'm sure he had plenty of undiagnosed mental things going on. I mean, the dude didn't finish product until he was probably late 20s, right? He couldn't finish anything, and we look at him and herald him as one of the greats, but he struggled with finishing projects, and he would switch. I'm a military strategist, now I'm an artist or whatever, and so we're too harsh on ourselves. And I think that a lot of that comes back to that imposter syndrome that you mentioned, which I've dealt with myself, even in, when things are going really well. When things are going bad, it's easy to have imposter syndrome. When things are going well, it's easy to have it as well, because you're like, wait, is this luck? Wait, did I really do that? Or did someone just help me? I'm probably not that good, right? And so, but then you realize that it's all about the comparison that makes that happen. And I think that people in our generation, we are lucky to have the tools that we do have with social media and the internet, but because of those tools, we're constantly comparing ourselves to others. But the problem is that we're comparing ourselves to images that aren't exactly true, right? We're comparing ourselves to assumptions of what other people are. And so that contributes to that imposter syndrome where you're like, well, they're perfect. Everything they do is perfect. Everything they do is, and it's like, yeah, that's everything they post.
Yeah.
You don't see what they're not posting, because why would they post the stuff they don't want to talk about?
Yeah.
And so that's what we were, saying as well earlier, is people, it's hard to get that out of folks about how hard it really is and what it really takes. So talk to me about the mental side, because the business, it's an established market. Doing collectibles is, you need to be educated on it, and you know what you're doing. Mm-hmm. But maybe talk to me a little bit about the mental side and how difficult that part is, right? Just keeping yourself going, constantly iterating on ideas. What's the biggest challenge that you faced on the mental front when it comes to the business?
It can definitely be hard, especially around this time of year.
Mm-hmm.
People aren't really getting together to, come and buy and sell for me and things like that. Like, I sell at a flea market, outdoor flea market. Obviously, when there's snow on the ground, I'm not going out and selling.
Yep.
And when it's 0 degrees out, no. So being not able to get out and interact with my customers, that's definitely a thing that kind of slows me down a little bit, and it's kind of hard to get going again once it warms up and everything like that. The other thing I will say is working with family is especially challenging, because someone might do something in the business that you may not like, and you have to keep it in the business and not bring it home to where you're a family and you love each other and everything like that. So really, those are the two big things that when it comes to a mental challenge for me.
Okay.
I would say.
And so you talked about how, you're not able to go out to the flea market. I totally respect that. I didn't even want to leave my house during the storm and stuff. But what are your, ideas in terms of how you want to challenge that status quo for your business, right? Because obviously direct to consumer in person is going to have its limitations, and especially in Kansas City, where, if you were in Florida or California, you might have more sunshine time. But what are your plans or thoughts around going online and tapping into that market?
So I've definitely combated it a little bit, but I'm definitely looking more into selling stuff online. I've touched on eBay a little bit. The problem with eBay, not saying that they're bad or anything, it's a good place to sell stuff. You get a lot of good customers from all over the world coming to buy your products. They just charge a lot of money.
Yep.
And so I try not to post on there, because about whatever you see something sold for, you get about 70%, 80% of that. Yeah. So it takes a big toll compared to going out to a flea market where I pay a flat fee just for a vendor spot. Of course, I have to, have overhead of buying my tables and things like that. But overall, I make more money doing it that way.
Yeah. So are you trying to scale it in terms of sales quantity? As we go into the next year, are you looking at doing just more in-person activations, or is it more doing that, but then additionally trying to find some online outlets?
Yeah.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, I graduate in May, and I want to try to find a full-time job instead of trying to make this my full-time job, because I am very passionate about collecting these cars too, and everything that I do for my customers, I see them more as my second family than just a number on a screen. And I just don't want to get to a point where I hate it.
Yeah.
So I don't want, I I could definitely scale this up, make this a $100,000 plus business in revenue if I want it to be that way. But the mental side for me, I don't want it to be that big.
Yeah.
But I want to keep going out there and treat my customers right. That's really, at the end of the day, that's all I want to do.
Yeah. So is that a short-term kind of goal or long-term where you want to keep this as a manageable, almost like that side piece to your life, just to keep it more? It's like, it's a hobby, but it also generates cash flow, right? Which is also, I appreciate, because everyone always thinks like, I need to make, $1 million on my business or it's whatever, which I like that approach because it doesn't always have to be about making $1 million.
No.
Sometimes it's just about doing the things that you love, and you'll have better access to cool stuff because you're in the marketplace, and
that's it. That's all there is to it.
yeah, no, and I think that's practical too, because a lot of people out there, they don't want to run their own company full time and be a full-time business owner and deal with all those stresses. I mean, it comes with its challenges and sacrifices.
Yep.
So talk to me about what your expectations are going to be when you graduate. What type of job are you looking for? How are you looking to balance everything together?
So one of the most practical skills I've gotten from being very customer focused, I love customer service, and I worked in retail for 6 years as well. So I really want to be in a customer oriented role. I know I'm doing majoring in supply chain management, and I don't know necessarily if I want to do like a sales type of position where I'm selling software or something like that, or maybe even working for like a Mattel or somebody like that, where
That would be fun.
I can be more hands-on with people that are very similar to me that are my customers in this business. So
That's an interesting thread to pull on. Like, have you thought about going after some of the, like, leveraging your collectibles knowledge and actually getting a job inside of that space?
So it's actually funny that you mentioned the toy miniature museum. I did a work study position there 2 semesters ago, just based on that. I'd love to leverage this experience into something in the future, just because I want my knowledge to mean more to someone else than just to me, if that makes sense.
Are you familiar with entrepreneurship?
So the term sounds familiar.
So entrepreneurship is the same as entrepreneurship in theory, but it's inside of an organization, right? So everyone thinks that, people are very black and white. They don't realize it's like life is very gray. It's not just so analog. The only thing analog is binary, right? So it's like when you look at something like what you're talking about, it reminds me of entrepreneurship principles, which is you going to a company that maybe has this, pedigree in Mattel or, Fisher, whatever, right? One of the toy companies. I'm not super educated on all the brands out there. But, one of those companies, but you bring your experience as an entrepreneur into the organization. And by bringing the entrepreneurship potential you have, you become an intrapreneur. You help innovate from inside the company, and you end up actually helping the products grow, to develop, right? I could imagine you working with the toy manufacturers themselves to be creating, throwback designs that incorporate new concepts with old concepts. And I think that's a really important thing. And I would definitely dig in on that, because what you see when you study businesses, which I'm sure you've seen, Apple and Dell and whoever else that you're studying in school, but these companies, they all go like this. And they all have their dominance and then their fall, right? So every company, IBM made the internet, and they're, not necessarily a top player anymore, right? So it doesn't, just because you make something incredible, doesn't mean you're always on top. And companies are trying to survive and grow at all times, right?
Yep.
And so being an entrepreneur, you get to be a catalyst for these companies to stay afloat, to stay alive, to stay growing, to stay agile, to stay pivotal. One example that I would give you that I think is really relevant is look at what Lego has done. They have almost mastered that to a T, where Lego was not doing a whole lot. I mean, it was cool when I was a kid, and then it kind of petered out, and it wasn't really getting there. And I remember reading about how they hired their current CEO, and he completely reinvented how they looked at their product line. And now they're selling, $300-400 dang near like beautiful art pieces in Legos, and they're a very viable business again. Yep. So every company has to be every company starts as an entrepreneurial venture. No company's ever started as a corporation, right? It's like always starts in a garage, unless it's a government mandated, thing. And then to grow again, it needs to be led by entrepreneurs, or it's got to be developed and pushed by entrepreneurs. And so I think that's a really important thing for you to dig into, is thinking about, hey, how do I keep doing the thing that I love, but then focus in my talents to help other people, because you're so obviously passionate about helping others and connecting to them. So you get to be that cog, that helps really move the business in the right way. So that's something I would suggest, is really looking into like entrepreneurship principles, because it seems like you're really knowledgeable on the topics. And there's a way that you could work with a lot of other people that have other skill sets, like, CAD design, 3D printing, whatever, making toys, you using your strategy in your mind and helping them guide the product into a better place.
Yeah.
So I think what's interesting too is we talked a little bit about, the challenges of learning in the modern kind of collegiate environment in high school. For everyone, we all learn differently, right? So whether it's lectures or quizzes or tests, right? Everyone's either terrible at a quiz, but they're great at, note taking or whatever. So talk to me about the entrepreneurial program here at UMKC and how the hands-on experience maybe has helped give you kind of that pathway to learn more about yourself.
Yeah, so the really cool thing about I'm part of the Entrepreneurship Scholars here, and the really cool thing about that is that it's really hands-on. Like, there's no book work. I think there's one required book, but it's not like a physical textbook. It's a book by Rick Rubin. I forget what exactly it's called.
That's dope.
Very, very cool book. It's all about creativity, which I don't consider myself a very creative person, but after reading that, it gave me a lot of inspiration. Things like Mentor Madness, where I got to meet people like you and some of the other mentors through here, top, like business professionals, things like that. I mean, they're all sorts of different people from different backgrounds. Being able to talk to a wide variety of people, that was really cool. And that's actually where I pivoted my idea, because I was like, I'm not pitching this right. I need to pivot and figure something else out. And the lectures that we have, that's not really lectures, it's just preparing us to be small business owners. And that it's just a really fun environment. I love it.
Yeah. Well, tell me, as we kind of wrap up, tell me about, your experience from building a family-owned business, which a lot of people have and do. What advice would you give to people as they're starting their family-owned business, or they're getting into, that type of environment? What would you give them as an advice that you wish you maybe would have had when you started out?
Like I said earlier, working with family is tough. It can be challenging to differentiate family life and business life. But once you can figure out that balance of, okay, they're mad at me because of a business decision, not because they don't love me anymore or whatever. As long as people can distinguish that, a family-owned business will run like clockwork, and that's how we've been successful for so long.
Awesome. Well, is there any other parting advice or wisdom you'd want to give to maybe up-and-coming, students here at UMKC, entrepreneurs, or even just collectors of any kind?
Just keep at it. It's whatever is coming down the road. As long as you keep at it, you'll get what you want in life. And I've gotten where I am today just by slowly chipping away at what I want to achieve. So that's all I got.
No, that's awesome. Well, thanks so much for taking the time, Andrew. It's great to hear about, your story, and I think it's an important one, because it's not always about, just trying to crush the whole thing and make everything about your identity about entrepreneurship, which a lot of people seem to think it is. Yeah. Sometimes it's just about helping people, bringing joy to people's lives, being a part of a bigger movement, and helping provide your perspective so that everyone can be happier, more successful, and better. So I wish you a lot of luck in your journey. I think that you have a lot of potential to make some great impact. I don't think toys are going anywhere anytime soon. No. So I think that there's a wide market out there, and hopefully I'll see some upcoming toys and concepts coming out of Mattel or something with Andrew touched on it.
I hope that's my future.
Yeah, well, I think it'll be coming true for sure. So thank you all so much for checking in. This has been episode 3 of our podcast series with the UMKC Block School of Management. We'll see you next time.